Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. So, I was just sitting here, kind of like perusing the index, and I thought it would be a fun exercise to go through and identify my top like five legendaries that I don't have that I want that would have the most impact on my account. And I thought it would be fun to do just like thought exercise on what would be the most impactful. How many places would I use them? Where would I use them? So I wrote some things down and I came up with a big list and I was like, all right, there's a lot here. So let's like boil it down. Let's boil it down. Top five non voids and then top five void legendaries. So a couple things that I did with this list to try and not narrow it down, but make it a little bit more compartmentalized and easier to wrap my head around is I excluded any guaranteed champion. So that'd be like a Lydia, a Mithrala, um, anything you'd collect fragments for, Lamasu, those champions, because everyone will get those eventually. So I took those out, even though they might be good, and I might even have one of those already. Uh, so I removed those, and then I didn't want to include mythicals because like everyone wants mythicals, and to me, as sort of an early game free to play ish player, mythicals seem kind of like out of reach. Like, oh, just wait until I get, I don't know, Sigmund or whoever, whatever his name is, and yeah, I'll just dominate. Like that's not, you can't really count on that, and unless you're spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars to just pull on 2x events, you're probably not getting one. So just legendaries, and I separated void and non-void because void legendaries I think are a little bit in their own category. Just by it's a totally different shard, it's a totally different track of uh mercy, and you just it's a totally different pool that you're pulling from. So let's go ahead and just start. So the first one of my non-voids is none other than good old Newt here. It's pretty obvious if you play the game for longer than a month or two that this is one of the best, if not the best, legendary in the game, non-void legendary in the game. Um, a three hitter on his A1 that does freeze, hard Fire Knight utility all over the place. His A2, I see a lot of people turn this off for certain aspects of the game, but I still see a lot of people use it. So just an AoE, 75% chance for decreased attack and weaken, and then puts a counterattack on him. Just an overall, just like a great move. And then the big boy, his A3, three hitter, decreasing defense by 3% each hit, and also heals the champion for 30% of the damage dealt. Oh, and by the way, does damage based on enemy max HP. Just an absolute nuclear bomb of a move. And then his passive counterattacking just does more damage. It's more relevant to the A2, but the A3 is the big one here. You gear him for this. I've seen a lot of Fire Knight teams. You make him fast and put him with ally attackers, and it's basically game over. I think this guy would be the most impactful champion to pull from like just a sacred shard on my account. Immediately, he's my best damage dealer. He's in every boss team. He's in a Sand Devil team. He's in a Sacred Grove team. He's just in every team that we're playing. We're fighting bosses, just without question. So I think this is probably one of the number one impact, and probably not a surprise to anybody. So moving to number two, I'm gonna go for my account personally with Arman's. Right when I picked up the game was during the 5 year. Sorry, when I re-picked up the game when I started playing again was the 5 year anniversary event, and I missed this fusion. I started like halfway. I came back halfway through the fusion and then realized how good he was. I mean, just a top tier PvP champion. He's even got the PvP coins in his belt. I mean, just everything about him, every move is just made to make your life miserable. He can almost solo entire teams if he is fast enough and has enough resistance. Just an incredible, incredible champion. And for someone like me who's still building up their great haul, this guy would be insane for that. Just allowing me to speed farm, basically, and not really worry about too many counters. He does have some counters, but at the level that I'm at in Arena, it just wouldn't even be an issue. I know he gets banned a lot in Live Arena. I'm not really too worried about Live Arena at this point. Just doing my one battle daily and climbing the ladder slowly. But just for the sake of my great haul, this guy would be insane. So not much more needs to be said about Arman's, but just an absolutely fantastic sheep champion, lockout champion, AoE stun, just everything you could want. So yeah, just unfair, and I hope I pull him someday. My next one is a champion who pairs well with Newt, pairs well with Seer, and is basically has been in the meta for speed dungeon farming ever since he's been in the game, and that's Prince Kmar. If you're new to the game, if you don't know what Kmar does, this move reset his A3 Seal of Magic, resets the cooldown of all skills, fills the turn meter of all allies by 20%. Just ridiculous. With Seer, he resets Seer's Karma Burn, which is just an AoE nuke. He resets all the abilities to put buff that your other champions were buffing with. So you basically just nuke through 2 waves in about 15 seconds. And if you can make your Seer strong enough, that scales all the way up. So as basically as far as you can take it. Once you get into the hard 8, 9, 10 dungeons, that's not so common unless you have an absolute Chad Seer. But yeah, this guy would unlock my dungeon farming in a way that would just no other champion can do it. There is Renegade. Renegade does a cooldown. Reset. It's only 2 turns. It's not a full reset like Kmar. So it's not, it's similar, but it's just nowhere. It's not even in the same universe as what this guy does. What else can you say? This guy would absolutely unlock everything with my dungeon farming. And my dungeon farming is not bad. I'm mostly in 25 in all the dungeons. Starting to kind of creep into the hard dungeons a little bit, but I'm missing some key champions like Kmar to really progress in those. I'm also missing a couple of key nukers as well, but those will come with time. So that's my number 3. My number 4 is an excellent champion that I wish I would have done. I think there was a Titan event. Maybe no, it wasn't a Titan event. It was like a one of those Titan's Path events, I think is what it's called. And he was a guaranteed in that, and that's Grand Oak Padri. What an incredible support champion this guy is. So A1, 25% chance of decreasing cooldown of a random ally skill by 2 turns. That's just awesome. It's better than, say, Glakead's number 1, A1, which is just a chance to freeze. This is Padri's much more along the lines of Ancora with his A1. A2 teams up with all allies to attack a single enemy. Allies joining the attack use their default skills. Also fully restores all allies destroyed max HP, places 15% continuous heal on all allies for 2 turns. The second part of this is cool, but the big one is the first part. Just an all-out ally attack. His A3 also turn meter fill with an increased speed, which is just always useful in every scenario. There's no scenarios when you're like, oh, I wish I didn't have this increased speed. Maybe like one random scenario where your speed tune is thrown off, but in general, this is just always useful. His passive is also like a sort of one-size-fits-all passive, which is cool. I don't think a lot of other champions have this, where if your champion has their attack is higher, then they get an, or I'm sorry, if they are an attack champion, they get an increased attack. If they are a defense champion, they get an increased defense. If they're a support champion, they get increased accuracy. And if it's an HP champion, they get a shield buff equal to 30% of that ally's HP. Just a cool thing that is like a custom. Oh, do you need attack? Here's some more attack. Do you need defense? Here's some more defense. Do you need accuracy? Well, here's some more of that too. Just so this guy's insane. He's just really good. He's used in most of the top Hydra teams. Excellent in Hard Fire Knight, which is one of the hard dungeons to do. I mean, just kind of where is he not good? I just don't, I would just love, and it's insane that he's not a void. Like everything about his kit is just insane. So, I'll stop gushing because it's weird talking about an old man like this. Lastly, so number 5 on my list, and this may be surprising to some, may not be surprising to others. I'm gonna go with Sun Wukong. I don't have this guy. My account was started in 2019. I took a long break. I could start a new account with a code and get him no problem. But this guy's actually crazy. He's like a top tier arena nuker. He's a top tier Hydra champion. His A1 is a stun, which is like a lot of times you build him with sort of a counterattack mastery. So he's just, whenever he's counterattacking, he's got a 25, what is that? 50% chance to stun. And then the chances increase to 50% if the target has any buffs, which is going to always be true in arena. Unless you have a strip, then I guess that won't be true. So maybe not always. His A2 ignores 50% of the target's defense. That's crazy. And then will attack all remaining enemies with any surplus damage if the target is killed. This always wipes my team. Like whenever I go up against the Sun Wukong, if I don't kill him and block revive before he uses this move, I'm generally dead. It's super annoying. I really want this champion. I would love to get him someday. I would love to get 2, if I'm being honest. And then his A3, this is where a lot of that utility comes in for Hydra. On a 3-turn cooldown, attacks all enemies before attacking, steals all buffs from all enemies, then places block buffs, debuff on them for 2 turns. So this is why I was saying I'd maybe want 2, because I would build one with like extremely high accuracy for that strip. Actually, you know what? It's placing the buffs. Yeah, steals all buffs and then places. So he doesn't even need accuracy for this. Never mind. You just build him as a nuker. Okay, I only want 1 now. You just build him as a nuker. You build him super, super strong, deals a ton of damage, is putting block buffs, and then, oh, what happened? He died? No big deal. 3 turns later, he just comes back with 100% HP and 100% turn meter. This is a ridiculous passive, by the way. No other champion does this, to my knowledge. With 100, there are some that self-revive, but 100% HP and 100% turn meter, this is stupid. Like, this guy's insane. Everyone, I think people sort of take for granted what he does, and he's actually crazy. Crazy. And you can feel it when you're on an account that you don't have a champion that is this good with this broken of a kit. Like, when I'm going up against him, it's literally something I have to plan for to counter. If I'm going up against, like, a Duchess or something, or, I mean, maybe apples to oranges, because that's, like, a support champion and not a nuker, but it's just like you have to have a plan for Sun Wukong if you're going up against him. You have to. So anyways. All right, so let's move on to the voids. So my number 1 void champion that I think would impact my account the most. Let me just make sure. Okay, it's going to be Sifi. This is still like an S tier arena support champion. All the top tier teams are using Sifi. A1 is just asleep. But this debuff cannot be resisted if the target's turn meter is equal to or above 50%. That's really cool. 2-turn block debuffs and increased defense and increased speed. And it's on a 4-turn cooldown. This is just a great move. Like, this is such a good move to protect your team from debuffs, protect your team from damage, make them go faster. All of those obvious things that those buffs do, but I don't think there are any other champions that do this. So this is really, really good. Lastly, reviving a single ally with 55% HP and a full turn meter, and then an increased attack and increased crit on that ally. It's just a fantastic move. Just really, really, really good. And then her passive, healing each ally by 10% of their max HP at the start of their turn. So Elva Autumnborn does this too, but I don't think it's 10%. and then has a 40% chance of removing freeze and fear debuffs from each ally at the start of each turn. Removes all debuffs from Rotos the Lost Groom at the start of their turn if they're on the same team. So this is that synergy with Rotos, because I believe they came out together, Rotos and Sifi, and that was while I was still playing in 2019. So it just goes to show that this champion has been meta for that long. I would love to have a CV. I would really, really, really would. So next, we're gonna go into, I believe it's Knight's Revenant and Narcis. Narcis is top tier HP nuker, still used in basically all the highest levels of Arena. A1 just increases cooldown of one of the target skills. A2 is just an attacks all enemy, just an absolute blaster of a move. Places an extra hit if they're under shield or strengthened, which is most of the time. And then this is interesting. Damage inflicted by this skill cannot be decreased by enemy passive skills or masteries, except by the passive skills of bosses. So this is just to not break him in PvE. This guy's just a top tier nuker. That's really like what this is. He has a lot of synergy with Ancora, who was I believe Ancora was the fusion, and he was the non-fusion that came out when they were released together. The reason this would be so impactful for my account is that I pulled an Ancora. I actually managed to get an Ancora off of a Prism Shard that was free, and I think that was earlier in the year. There was some event that they did. It wasn't Christmas. It was, I think, maybe Thanksgiving. I don't know. I got an Ancora, and so immediately I was thinking, man, if I could get a Narcis, this would be huge. This would be great for my Arena teams. And just great, just all together to help take my account into that next level. Not for nothing, but I also have this, just sort of waiting. Where is it? This 4-star Narcis Soul, just sort of waiting. I got this off of one of the Prism for souls, because normally you can't pull souls for champions you don't have. This guy managed to come from that event, so that would be really cool if I could actually use that. Also, just as a kind of like just a big kick in the nuts. Here's a 5-star Teox Soul. Don't have Teox. Won that tournament. Got an easy group and just won the tournament when they gave it away. And I'll probably never get one of those guys. But if I do, you guys will know right away. So let's go to the next one. So I wanted to, I think he's a little bit of not in the meta, but also just a crazy champion. Not Teox. Sulfurion. Why isn't this guy meta? I feel like he probably has some counters, because his kit is really based around putting HP burns on the target, and then everything sort of builds off of that. So maybe it's because he's more of a PvE champion. Although when I do see Sulfurions in Arena, I do have to think about what he does and plan to kind of mitigate it. And so maybe that's why he's just not meta in Arena. But as far as PvE goes, just an insane champion. This guy is basically built for Spider Dungeon. And, I mean, it's a place we all got to farm. So I would just love to have this guy. This guy would take my my Spider team and just basically easy mode it almost all the way up. Also underrated hard Ice Golem with the HP burns, with him and like someone, he already activates his own burns, but another HP burner, like if I could snag an R-Tac, but I wouldn't even need that. I have like an Ignatius, and then him activating the burns would be crazy. That would be really fun. That'd be something I'd love to test out. That's just sort of like feely crafting in my mind, but I just really want this guy. This guy's cool. He has a cool kit. He does a lot of team support too, hitting enemies with burns, increasing turn meter, and healing. Just like a great support champion that also burns everything to the ground. So just a cool aesthetic. All right, two more. We're going to stay with Lizardmen. Krisk is my next one, as specifically a Hydra carry. A1 AoE decrease speed. That's just awesome. A2 attacks all enemies, placing ally protect and continuous heal on all champions, and then increases duration of all ally buffs too. So you get your strengthen, you get your increased speed, you get other buffs from other people, and then he just every 3 turns he's extending all those buffs. So it's almost 100% uptime, depending on your speeds. And then lastly, provoke. Just placing a provoke, no accuracy needed. So, and then on top of that, placing increased defense on this champion for 2 turns, 30% increased speed on all allies except this champion for 2 turns. So maybe he slows down a little bit, but this is a 3-turn cooldown. Placing provokes is so key in Hydra. It's so good. And then I don't want to ignore his passive here because he also brings decreased attack and decreased defense, which are key debuffs in Hydra, and in a lot of content. This guy would be great in Clan Boss. He would unlock a lot of slots in your clan boss team because I'm sure you're probably doing some of these other things with other champions. He just brings like everything. This guy was introduced, I think, in 2019. I was still playing. I remember Krisk being introduced. And I thought, boy, I'll never get that guy. I still kind of feel that way. Okay, so Krisk kind of speaks for himself. He's just fantastic. And then my last one started with dwarves, going to finish with dwarves. So I think a lot of people would probably assume I'm going to go with Acrizia here, which Acrizia is great. I'm actually going to go with Senna. In supports, I have this thing with, like, I just love solid support champions, like really top tier ones, and Senna fits right into that. So A3. Okay, so this is basically sort of like the big thing with her kit. Whenever a continuous heal buff activates on an ally, fills the turn meter of all allies by 5%. At the end of this champion's turn, increases the duration of a continuous heal buff on a random ally except for the champion for 1 turn. So she's filling everyone's turn meter whenever she activates or an continuous heal buff is activated. And then she's extending the duration of one of them. So that's cool. This revive, this is insane. Revives all dead allies 50% HP in turn meter, then teams up with all allies revived by the skill to attack the team or attack the enemy with the lowest HP. The allies joining the attack will use their default skills. Fantastic. This is so cool. You can build teams around basically dying and then getting res and then ally attacking, but that's really not what her big thing is. This is just a really cool niche ability for her on a 4-turn cooldown. So A2 is increased speed and 2 continuous heal buffs on all allies for 2 turns. And then filling the turn meter. And then you pair it with this, attacking one enemy, and then has a 50% chance, ends up being 60% chance to instantly activate a continuous heal. So let's keep in mind with her passive, she's giving turn meter to all allies whenever a continuous heal buff activates. So your team gets 2 continuous heals. They take their turn. Everyone gets 10% more turn meter because they activated their heals. She A1s and activates 1. Everyone gets 5. And then the next turn goes, and then the next turn, and then, but like you're just cycling turns like crazy. Like this champion is insane. This is such an insane passive skill. I just don't know how, like, they really outdid themselves at this one. This one's insane. It's so good. And I just like the dwarf faction. I don't know why. I'm just like, I wish I had more of them. I just think they have a cool aesthetic. I just like them. Trunda, Molly, Newt, Acrizia, like, look at this. This is like if Gimli was from hell. Like, this is it's insane, like, art that they would put on a champion. Like, geez. Okay. All right, I'm getting sidetracked. Anyway, so those are my top 5. I think if I pulled any of those 10 champions, I would be mega, like, just out, like, so excited. I would be stoked. I would be super stoked to get any of those champions, and they would have a spot immediately in almost any content that I was trying to tackle. So, yeah, I was just trying to think if there's anything else with these. I think I left out a couple probably pretty impactful ones. So if I did, feel free to send it in the comments and just tell me, like, hey man, you missed this one. This is where I use them. This is why they're so good. I'm always trying to learn, always trying to get better at the game. So, anyways, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for listening to me ramble. Appreciate you guys. Drop me a like, drop me a sub if you like the channel, and I hope everyone has a great weekend. And I'll catch you guys later. Peace.